Hi guys, this week I'm going to take you through the rigging of Princesa's brailing lines. Bruno wanted to reposition the thimbles, so the whole web will be done from scratch. So, to what we call the web? Before we see it for real, let me try to show you on this photo. First, we need a line from the tip of the yard to the clue. Then we need the brailing lines themselves, of course. These go from the leech line up to and down the yard all the way to just before the mast. From there, a color-coded rope or sheet is attached to each brailing line, and these are then led down to the deck cleats. All brailing lines are doubled up lines, meaning that for each one you see on this picture there is another one on the other side of the sail. You will soon understand why we call it the web. So let's see the real footage, but before we start we better get the sail on the yard. Okay, first pieces of the brailing system, the thimbles. These look like dog bones and each one is made with a specific length or size depending where on the yard it's placed to compensate for the tapered shape of the yard. They will be placed on the top side of the yard and the lines will run through them all the way to the stainless steel ring close to the mast, so they can then be led down to the cleats. Good alignment is desired but not critical. And Edgar's trying to pick up the local radio station here. Right, the leash line was attached to the R-tip and to the clue with some slack, but we need more room to work, so let's take it somewhere else. Edgar is holding a 100-meter spool of 4mm single-braided poly line. Bruno will take one end and run it under the sail to the first thimble. Pass it through all thimbles on one side of the yard and then through the ring. Now it doubles up the brailing line around the leech line. Evaluates if there is enough slack to play with, and then runs it down to the ring before cutting it and pass it through the upper thimbles. Then just repeat this step for all 5 brailing lines. At this stage, all lines are longer than needed. They will be cut to size later. You can see here how they go around the leech line, but still not attached to it. They will need to be balanced and trimmed soon. But first, let's see how they are attached to the leech line. The brailing lines are pulled to bunch up the sail, taking care to keep both ends of the lines with same length as much as possible. Although not that critical at this stage, it's good practice. Now the leech line is more or less centered to the yard and sewed to the brailing line. Notice that tug towards the tip of the yard? That is to make sure that when the brailing lines are pulled, the leech line is kept also taut. Now do the same for all of them. It's now time to balance the lines on each side of the yard. To do that, I pull on each brailing line by the leech line, taking care to leave enough slack to account for the sail's draft. Since I can't really pull the sail flat, we have to make sure that the brailing line is just touching the sail on both sides. Which is the same as saying that we are trying to match the lines to the sail curvature while trying to find out the minimum length needed after it goes through the stainless steel ring on the yard and while leaving just enough slack. Yeah, right? Hope the video explains it better. Once we agree on a certain length, Bruno ties the ends to make sure that they stay that way. We can now pull them tight and make the final cut, making also sure, once again, that the leech line is centered and both lines are equally long. And another knot is done as close as possible to the previous one. Fast forward a few hours and Bruno has sewn the color-coded sheets to the lines. Notice that all are attached after going through the stainless steel ring. Only one to go and Bruno is finishing it now. Okay, so here he thinks that there is enough slack and he can cut it a bit shorter than the knot. So, one brailing line, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th almost done. All sheets have to run to the cleat on the yard when the yard is not up. This line controls how far the yard is allowed to go away from the bow and must be attached before lifting the yard. This rope was wrapped around the yard and now around the mast. It's this rope that keeps the yard close to the mast when sailing. It needs to be slack when hoisting the yard and then pull tight. On boats this size, it's usually connected to a 3-to-1 pulley system. I have made a video where I rig a small traditional boat and explain, in more detail, what each line does on a Lateen rig. I'll leave a link to it at the end of this video. Bruno is now attaching the horses. Again, I'll explain what they are for on the other video. Although, I have to say, I had people calling these preventers on some comments. Guys, these are not to prevent any jibes. If this sail in the yard want to jibe, you better not have these made fast or it will most likely not cause a capsize. They are very important control lines, but you need to be very careful with these in strong winds. And now it's time for the brailing lines. Okay, pulling the first one. And it looks good. Next ones. Before we see the brailing lines in use, let me just say that this is the way we rig it here in our area. This is not intended to be the best way or the ultimate way to rigging or to anything really. It's just the way we do it here, and if you have any suggestions, please just leave it on the comment section below. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. The more likes it gets, the more YouTube will show it to other people, so help me share it. Also, if you want to see more videos like this, then just click the bell icon below to get the notifications when I upload new content. Unfortunately, this part of the sail needs to be rolled by hand, and it can be a pain in strong winds too. So let's have a look at the brailing lines in use. Here me and Bruno sailed to Rat Island for a quick break and a beer, or four. The sail has been reduced as much as possible by the brailing lines while we enjoy our beers. On the way back is sailed with 3 brailing lines still cleated, which allows for an easy and relaxed run. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And that's it. Guys, stay safe and I'll see you next week.